resources after the session. So yeah, let's get started. Thank you all for joining. Really the goal of today's session is to talk about action-based learning, what it is, why it's so effective, and we're going to look at the differences between passive learning and active learning. We're going to look at some of the problems with passive learning, some of the benefits of action-based learning, and eventually we're going to talk about practical ways in which you can add action-based learning elements to your existing programs. So let's first talk about the definitions of passive learning and active learning. So passive learning is any form of learning where people passively absorb information. It could be either by watching videos, it could be by reading textual content, or listening to a lecture or audio or any form of content that they're consuming. Now, active learning is being involved in the process. It's about taking action that's related to the content that we're consuming. So for example, engaging in a discussion, practicing a strategy with a colleague, or even writing things down, taking a quiz, answering questions, that sort of stuff. So if you kind of look at your existing training programs that you're delivering in your organization, do you think you're using mainly passive learning or active learning? And if something is not clear with the definitions, feel free to ask. But we'd like you to share in the chat what you think you're mainly using, just to see where we stand. So I see Matthew and Keith mentioned they're using mostly passive learning. And there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, this is an active learning workshop, so we would like you to all be very active in this workshop. So
yeah.
feel free to to share in the chat and be as active as possible. If you want, you can also open your camera so we can see you as well. It's really all about to make it a practical workshop, and we want to make sure that everyone gets lots of value from this meeting today. So I can see here, by the way, we didn't introduce ourselves. My name is Idan.
Right.
I'm the founder and CEO at myQuest. This is Billy. She is one of our instructional designers, and she's I would say learning expert. And really what we do at myQuest, we have our own LMS solution, and really we're focusing on creating high engagement for people through learning. And so I can see that most of the people said either passive or a combination. I see that Nick wrote that he tried to be active on courses. It is marketed as USP. So what we're seeing actually in many organizations that we're working with, usually most of the training is passive. And the reason for that is like, this is the default, like you create a video, you create content for people, you deliver the content to your learners, but passive learning is great, but it's not enough. And Billy, maybe you can share with us, what are the challenges with passive learning?
Yeah. So when we look at the numbers of passive learning, and like Idan said, it's great. It's not a problem of its own, because we do want this information to get to our people in every possible form. But if they don't take action, if they're not involved in the process, you can see that the numbers are really concerning. So more than half of the information is forgotten within 1 hour if we don't interact with it. And then another large chunk is forgotten within a week. But after 1 month, almost nothing is left. And I want to talk about why it happens. And it starts with the way our brain is designed to absorb information, is designed to learn. So we're looking now at what's called perception action cycle. And this cycle kind of describes the way that we learn and the way that we really develop new skills. So this cycle shows you that I'll talk first like a high level, and then we'll talk how it relates to learning. So It starts with our perception of the reality of our environment, of the things that we observe. And then when we see something, we predict what will be the most desired action or the ideal action to take. After we take action, there is some sort of outcome. We get some sort of feedback. So based on that feedback that we receive, we then again perceive the reality in a slightly different way. And the more we go through that cycle, the better that we act. So when we look at learning, let's take an example of a sales training, or like me wanting to become a better salesperson. So if I'm in a sales meeting, I start by perceiving my environment, my prospect. I look at their body language, I look at how they react to me, and based on that, I predict what will be the behavior that I need to, or the action that I need to take. I then take that action and I get feedback from them. It could be verbal. They could say something. They could say, well, this solution is not for me, or they could say, or that it could be their body language. And then based on that feedback, again, I change my next action. And this cycle really describes how we learn. And think on the other hand, maybe I could watch a video about sales strategies. I could watch a video that tells me how to be a good salesperson, but it's not going to be as effective as actually engaging in the sales process, as taking action, maybe failing, maybe succeeding, but adjusting my behavior based on the actions that I take and the feedback that I receive. So that's kind of like in a nutshell how it works and why it's effective. And when we look at passive learning and we think how we want to improve that experience of passive learning, it starts with actions, with adding actions to our learning experiences. And it doesn't mean that we have to start from scratch. It doesn't mean that we need to design a completely new training program. Not at all. It means that we just take what we have, we take the content items that we currently deliver, and we add action-based learning elements to them.
Yeah, by the way, I want to add something. In a way, training and learning without active element into it, it's like food without spices. Like you can still eat the food, it will be good, but you won't enjoy it, and it won't you don't want to go back and have the same dish again. And what we're seeing in many organizations is that organizations are delivering training. They're focusing on how we can, deliver the information to people. They want to make it engaging, but because many organizations and many trainers, they don't add these active elements into this training, and eventually people don't retain the information. And for me, it was mind-blowing the first time that I saw that 90% of the information is being forgotten after 1 month. So why are we actually doing this training? It's just 1 month. Eventually, we want the information to last for a much longer time. So really what we want to show you here is what are the results when you're adding some active based learning strategies into your existing content. And then we want to talk a little bit how actually to implement that, because we want this to be practical. We don't just want to talk about, the issues with passive learning. We want everyone to feel that they're getting tools to go back to your daily job and actually delivering much more effective training. And now Billy will share with us a little bit about what are the results when we're adding active-based learning into our content.
Yeah, and thanks, Idan. So as you can see, really the results are really, really amazing. So first of all, we see that active learners, they have a 1.5 times higher chance of success compared to passive learners. And success, it could be in the actual performance in the job, or it could be quizzes and exams that they're taking. Active learners remember more than 90% of the information that they are learning. As you remember, with passive learning, it was more than 90% was forgotten within 1 month. So there's a huge difference there. And it also develops skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, and problem-solving capabilities. And eventually it encourages a deep level of engagement and understanding in the process. So these are all things that active learning can do. Now, as Idan mentioned, we want this to be practical. We want you to actually, get some practical tools and ideas today. So I want you to think of a training program that you currently have that you'd like to improve with action-based learning. If you could share it in the chat, that will be great. If you don't feel comfortable sharing in the chat, you can write it down to yourself, but it's important that you write it down, that you have something to work with today. So let's take a moment to share that.
See that, yeah, go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, so I see Tina, it's a leadership development series, and with Matthew, training new hires. So that's great for that. And Betsy, and if you don't have a program online currently, that's okay. Even you can do it with offline programs as well. So
yeah, it doesn't matter. It can be in-person training. Like there are ways to deliver in-person training with active learning strategies and with passive learning strategies. And you want to make sure you add some active learning strategies to your in-person training as well.
Yeah. So we see basic leadership skills, management training program, and full qualification contact center. And for coaching program, that's also great, because coaching is also something that the more practical it is, the better. So keep on sharing. Thank you for everyone who shared so far. Again, share or write it down to yourself. And we want to start getting practical. So like we said, passive learning, it all starts with passive learning, right? Every training program has its own content items, like videos, like audio files, lectures, virtual or physical, if it's a blended learning journey, or articles that people need to read. But the important part is that every content item is paired with some sort of activity. So we're going to look at some examples just kind of to spark your imagination. So for example, a video about sales strategies where I'm listening or watching different sales strategies that could work for me. It could be accompanied by a practice with a colleague. So I could practice that one of the strategies or more with one of my colleagues. So that's an example of hands-on activity. Some other example could be a discussion with my team or with my boss about the strategies. It could be answering questions about what I just learned, or the most effective way is to try one of those strategies in my next sales call. So these are all examples of hands-on activities, of things that people can do to reinforce the information, to reinforce the learning. And Idan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to say something. Really, like, when you right now, let's talk. Billy gave an example of sales training. Let's talk a little bit about leadership training. So, for example, right now, you teach the new managers how to provide feedback for their employees. It's great to teach them some framework on how to provide feedback, but it's very important, that now they will go and practice it, on the next week, try to do it maybe every day, try to provide feedback. And I would encourage every trainer here, everyone who is actually building and designing content, try to really be very, I would say, strict about it. Every piece of content that you provide to people, try to think, what can they do with this? Sometimes it's not that clear as, give feedback to your employees. Sometimes maybe they can just answer some questions about it, but you always want to make sure that people are active. And what we want you to do right now, before and everyone will thinking about a training program that right now that you have, try to think on some activities that learners can apply in these training programs, and try to think on activities that they are not doing today. And maybe share with us here in the chat, what is the program that you currently have, and what kind of an activities you might be able to add to this program. By the way, a quiz is also great, but it's also important to notice that there are certain levels of activities. What do I mean by that? Like so level 0 is just maybe I'm watching a video, I'm listening to a lecture, but I'm not doing anything. So I'm sure some of you here watching us on this workshop, you just watch and don't do anything. I can assure you that you will forget probably the vast majority of what we are going to talk about. Now, level 2 of, how can you be active is, you can take a quiz. You can answer some questions about what you've just learned. You can reflect on what you have just learned. So this is the next level on how you can be engaged with the content, which is a way better than just watch passively, watch the content passively. Now, the next level is actually how to practice what I've just learned. So if in a quiz or in a writing assignment, it's very theoretical and I'm just trying to remember what I've learned, practice what I've learned is really the next level. And this is like the example of, going and provide feedback to my employees. And because then we actually get this loop that Billy explained about it before, with the perception and the outcome and the feedback that we're getting back from the environment. So I see that Yvonne is taking note, which is great. So please share with us here in the chat, think about some creative activities that you can provide your learners to do in your training. Maybe you can say, I have a leadership training and I think that, maybe we can pair people together and give feedback to each other, or maybe people can go and I don't know, give feedback to their employees, and share with us what ideas do you have. Let's try to feed each other and get some ideas from each other. So let's see what people are sharing.
And before that, Idan,
yeah.
I think also what I would encourage you to do is think of a specific content item, like maybe a specific video that you're delivering. What is in this video? Even write this down in this format in the chat. Like, I have a video about leadership tactics. Here's what I want people to do after they watch the video. So kind of in the format of like learning item, activity, learning item, activity. And if you could share it this way in the chat, it will also be insightful and interesting for other people to learn from you. So yeah, Idan, you were...
Yeah, Billy, you want to share some of the takeaways that people shared with us in the chat?
Yeah, so we had some ideas on okay, note taking. I don't know if that was an idea for an activity.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then group discussions. These are wonderful ways to reinforce learning. Workplace simulation as well. We have a group mock project. And then relevant scenario-based questions. For example, here's a situation based on what we just covered. What steps would you take to use the software? Could be answered in pairs or breakout rooms. So yeah, this is a wonderful example. And individuals identify one takeaway. So Idan, did you understand that?
Which one?
Activity? Individuals identify one takeaway, and maybe Tina, yeah. If
you can clarify, Tina, with us. I see that Betsy wrote, we have a leadership training, and one of the things we do is an exercise in breakout rooms. I see that also. I think Kevin mentioned it as well, that you're working in breakout rooms and then get a feedback from the group. So actually, this is a very good idea. I see that Lisa is writing that she has a video, and also she's doing a breakout room and small discussion and then a larger group discussion. Everyone, including the trainer, always learn from the group to share. By the way, working with a group and creating, people that creating peer learning and allowing people to work together, it's a very effective way to create high engagement. So this is really good. I also encourage you, I think that many times, we do some of the activities during the training, but I also encourage you to think, what kind of a homework can you give people to take, after the in-person training session, or along a specific video, something that they can do in their natural work environment. Like the closer the activity is to the daily work, remember, it's more effective. Like, you always want to try to simulate, to bring these activities to people's daily work. This is the most effective way as possible. I see that David wrote that I teach a course on effective facilitation where learners discuss specific skills and actually deliver a full presentation over 2 days workshop. Nice. And receive feedback from the rest of the group. This is useful for developing leadership presentation skills. This is actually very good, because people are actually practicing what they have learned. They need to right now deliver the presentation in front of everyone. I'm sure this is a very meaningful experience. And one more tip that I have for you, the more emotions that you can create for people around these activities, you will have much higher retention rate, because eventually, what do we remember? We remember right now, if you would need to go and speak in front of a crowd of 500 people, this will be probably something you'll remember for the rest of your life, unless this is something you do on a daily basis, because it will spark lots of emotions for you, right? So we always want to push people, with activities that, even take them sometimes out of their comfort zone. I see that Bill wrote created customer interaction dialogue audio for learners to practice in customer-facing situation on the job. Really nice. And we have so many, I see Yvonne wrote she loved calls, and actually working with calls is also a very powerful way. Julie wrote a question. I was trained under the premise that practice does not make perfect. Practice make permanent, right? Perfect practice makes perfect. To get to perfect practice, you can't just throw content out and then expect learners to actually do something. Do you have any tips on how to build quality practice through just assigning an activity, especially considering a very low retention rate for content sharing? So actually, we're going to share some examples later on in this workshop on how we actually implement this active-based learning, and we'll be happy to discuss about it. Billy, maybe and by the way, thank you everyone for being so active and sharing your comments here on the chat. I know we didn't have the time to go over everything, but we do want to make sure we can cover everything throughout the workshop. And if any one of you has, by the way, any specific scenario that you would like to discuss with us, feel free to book a call with us after this workshop, and we'll be happy to to have a conversation one-on-one and see how we can support you with that. But let's continue, Billy.
Yeah. So and actually, when on the questions on tips on how to build a quality practice through just assigning activity, so David responded to Julie that feedback during practice can be a very powerful learning experience. So it takes us to the next part, which is all about feedback. Because feedback is critical in an action-based learning journey. It's not just about having activities, it's also, like we saw in the perception action cycle, feedback is really crucial. It helps people understand how they're doing. It also gives them motivation to move forward. And eventually it's kind of the engine that gets me to perform better, because if I don't get feedback, I don't know what I have to improve. Now we want to aim to have feedback, to get feedback or to give feedback after each activity that people perform. So let's say they watch a video, they're performing an action. How can I then give them feedback? It could be either feedback from the mentor, facilitator, manager, or it could be that they get feedback from peers, from colleagues, one-on-one, or from a group, from my team. So a lot of the examples that you've given in the chat cover these three methods to give feedback. And only when I know how I did, only when I know how well I performed the activity and what I need to improve is when I can actually learn more. I can deepen my understanding of the topic and improve over time. So there are two main ways that we can give feedback to people as part of a training program. One way is to add it as one of the activities. So for example, please answer the following questions on what you just learned, and then share your answers with your manager, with a colleague to get their feedback. Another way, it could be something that's more integral, of an element of the training program itself. So could be a weekly or bi-weekly meeting with the participants of the training, where they share their experiences, they get feedback from each other. So these are kind of two ways, but Idan, maybe you want to add to that, kind of elaborate on more ways to give feedback.
Yeah, and the two ways that you mentioned, Billy, are very like, I totally agree with this. You can either add the feedback as an activity, or you can have it as, you know, another training session which is focused on feedback. And one of the things that we have seen is many times there is no enough emphasis on feedback, especially when it comes to online training. You know, we expect people to learn something new, but there are no feedback mechanisms as part of the training. And even when you take action, let's say that, you know, let's take the example of sales training, right? So maybe I'm a sales rep, and right now I learn how to handle customer objection. And now I'm speaking with a customer and I'm trying this new method. I'm getting a feedback from the customer. So this is one type of the feedback I'm getting, because if I was able to close the deal, then I know that I did something right. But besides the feedback that I'm getting from the situation itself, which is already something that you're getting automatically with action-based learning, it will be much more helpful for me to actually get a feedback from a sales expert who can see what I've done and, you know, let me know what I can, how can I improve and what can I do better. And you can, and sales is just one example. So always when you add these activities and these actions as part of your training, try to think what kind of feedback mechanisms can we add into this program, so we can make sure that people can really like learn from that activity. And they will learn from that activity no matter what, but the feedback is taking it another step forward and making sure that, you know, we can create a really a meaningful learning experience. And now we want to have another action for everyone, another exercise. Billy, maybe you want to explain about it?
Yeah, so now that we kind of explained the different ways to give feedback to people, I want you to think of practical ways that are realistic for you. So not just like nice ways to give feedback, but things that could be realistic in your training programs, in your organization, to incorporate feedback into your programs. So think of ways or channels that you can use for feedback. And again, make sure that it's realistic for you, because if a weekly meeting is not possible, let's say, that's fine. There are other ways to incorporate that. So let's take a moment again to share in the chat which ways could work for you. And Yvonne mentions a digital community platform or a board like Slack, which is perfect. And a digital community platform, I think it's a good idea. It could also be, if we're talking about digital training, online training programs, yes, that could be integrated into the system that you're using. Wait, let me know who is not muted. Um, and Tamara mentioned she's used that with success, a digital community. So maybe you can share which ones you've used. Was it integrated into the course platform? Was it separate? And like Yvonne mentioned.
Lisa mentioned accountability buddies. This is actually a very powerful way to deliver training, working with accountability partners. So it's a great idea. I see that Kevin wrote, I'm using the post to community feature in myQuest to ask questions that I want everyone to share with the rest of the group, and then provide feedback and support to one another. That's great. And Kevin, I know that you're using myQuest, so it's good to have you here. Tamara wrote, it was Slack and separate with each cohort participating. Let's see what Yvonne wrote. Many companies don't even have in-house training. This is true. Many companies, one of the things that's happening very often with companies, they're buying these libraries of training, and no one really in the organization is expert about that content. It's just like a random content that they buy for some content aggregator. And what's happening there is that there are no activities. There is no feedback. It's just like watching some random YouTube video, which can be good, but usually it's not very effective. Usually to create effective training, you need to have these action-based strategies and feedback strategies in place. I see that Matthew wrote follow-up feedback sessions built into onboarding of new hires. That's great. Ask them to come with a list of 3 problems they encountered and how to solve them. Then workshop their solutions. So this is really good, because having these sessions and making sure that we can hear people, we can provide them with feedback. It's a very powerful way to make sure that people can actually learn and improve. Billy, you want to read the rest of the comments as well?
Yeah, so you just read Matthew's, right? The follow-up feedback sessions. And then David mentions a post-course self-evaluation portal or prompt where learners can communicate what worked well and what didn't, and where they feel they need to improve. And the instructor can provide guidance from these self-evaluations. So that's a wonderful example. And Yvonne says, following the previous comment, that it's generic, not company specific. And Kevin also added virtual escape rooms as a way for participants to understand teamwork and leadership concepts. So that's a great activity. I don't know if it relates to feedback or not, but virtual escape room is a perfect activity to add to your program. And Julie, there are a number of video practice tools coming out where you can get both AI and human feedback. So also use some simple recording tools to have people record their practice.
Actually, we are just integrating one of these tools to myQuest. It's called Interflection. It's a leadership training tool where you can, it's also for sales, but basically you can speak. You have like a human being. It's not really a human being, it's powered by AI, where you can maybe practice your sales pitch or practice how to provide feedback to the learner, and then you can get feedback from the AI. So we're seeing lots of these simulation coming into place. And actually, if we're looking at AI, one of the things that we're implementing right now with myQuest is using AI to provide feedback to learners. So most of you don't know our platform, but we added lots of feedback mechanism as part of the learning journey from a coach, from a accountability partner, or from a community. But right now we're also adding AI, because AI has so much capabilities that it didn't have, a few years ago. So it's definitely something that can add lots of new elements with the feedback as well. Let's move on, Billy, and
yeah, we want to look at a real example of an action-based sales training program. So Idan, will you take the lead You share your screen. I'll stop sharing mine.
Yeah, I'll share my screen right now. And what I want to show you, I'm going to show you an example of a sales training. And I want to show you how we took, a sales training which can be very passive, and how we actually added lots of action-based activity and feedback into that training. So I'll show you here some example. Everything, by the way, everything that you're seeing here, this is on our learning platform. It's called myQuest. So we actually created a learning platform which is focused on action-based learning. So this is really the way we believe you can create effective training. And many organizations are using this learning platform either as a standalone LMS. Sometimes they take this format and put it inside of their existing LMS. And also many training companies are using this to deliver training to their customers. But I want to focus here about the example. So what you're seeing here, for example, this is a sales training. And this training has modules. We call each module a level. And for example, the first level or the first module is about being present and have active listening in the call. So let's go to the first activity. As you can see here, we call each activity a mission because, again, we want this to be practical. And if I'm looking at this first activity, now I have a video about active listening, and then I have a text, about, what type of listenings I might have. I might use deep listening or full listening or critical listening. I don't know how familiar are you with the type of listening, but basically as a salesperson, you want to be use full listening. You want to be really engaged with your prospect, making sure you understand and be with them on that call. Now, in a traditional training, you can just show people the video and let them read, what type of listenings they might have. And maybe you want, people usually watch the video and move forward to the next training element. But when we actually do action-based training, what we're actually adding, we're adding a mission. And you can do it with myQuest, but you can also do it with your existing LMS, right? Add a mission. So for example, here, my mission is to read the definition, understand what are the 4 types of listening, and then I need to go and practice full listening on my next sales call, right? It's not just enough to do it, just learn about it. We need to make sure people practice it. And with our platform, we can, in this example, we ask the salesperson to do it only once, but maybe in this mission, we can ask them to do it, I don't know, 3 times or 4 times. And so once let's say that I'm a salesperson and now I just had this conversation with with a prospect, it actually was great. And then I can check that I did it. Now what we're doing, we're moving to the feedback part. So you see here, this is one element that we added to our LMS, but again, you can add it to your own existing training as well, even not in myQuest. It's very powerful to ask people questions to reflect on their activity, because then it gives them the opportunity to get feedback. And also the reflection itself really helps with knowledge retention, because reflection is another activity that I'm doing as part of the training. So right now I'm getting this question: how was your experience applying full listening? Did you feel the difference compared to the previous sales calls? Share with the community or with your coach. Now, here with our LMS, we have the ability to have one-on-one coaching. We have the ability to have community feedback. We added lots of different feedback mechanisms. So now I can share my experience. It was great. And then I can just write, my full experience. And let's, for example, share it here in our platform with the community. So some of the examples that we heard before about providing feedback was having a cohort, people working together. So for example, here, you see I just shared this answer with my cohort, and then all the people taking the same training with me can see it, and now they can provide feedback to me. And if I don't have a coach, I can share it in a journal. And if I have a coach in our platform, I can share it with my coach, and then my coach can provide me feedback. But the same principle that you're seeing here with our platform. So this platform was designed for action-based learning. So it's really like the easiest way to deliver action-based learning when it's online or blended, it's with this, probably with this platform. But again, you can still use these tactics with your existing LMS if you don't want to have a new tool. So this was just an example of listening. Now let's go to the next activity. For example, the next activity is about how to be present on the call, how to make sure that I'm coming and present on the call. So again, I have a video, I have a mission, and maybe now we don't want the sales, like obviously we want the sales rep to practice it, but let's say that we want to show you another example. So maybe here my mission would be to get a recording of one of my calls on the previous week, and and watch the recording and answer the following questions. So again, my activity would be to watch the recording. I'm actually seeing myself, and it's not easy for salespeople to see themselves because no one likes to see themselves, right? And now after I'm seeing myself, I can answer this question: how many times did you end up looking at the camera while you were speaking during the call? Or do you see making the difference in your ability to be present in your with your prospect? And again, you know, I got the activity to watch the recording. It's an activity. And then I actually need to reflect on this activity, answering this question. And now when I'm answering this question, again, with our platform, if I have a coach or a community, I can get feedback to these answers. So everything is being logged in my journal or being shared with my coach, and now I can get some feedback. So let's see another two quick examples. So for example, in the next activity, it's actually me as a salesperson. We want to make sure that the sales rep, every day before they start the day, they come, you know, with the best mindset to start the day. And maybe we want to teach them to do some, I don't know, 15 minutes or 5-minute meditation, or setting up their intention for the day. So for example, in this mission, at the beginning of the day, before you start your calls, take 20 minutes, it can be 5 minutes, to prepare and listen to this guided meditation above. Now, what's unique about this mission, this is something that ideally we want people to do on a daily basis. And you'll find that some of the activities that you want people to have, maybe you want them to practice it on a daily basis. Like, let me give you another example. Maybe right now, in sales, maybe I want to smile every time that I'm picking up the phone, or in leadership, maybe I want to every day to have my daily meetup with my team. Now here with what we actually did here, after I'm doing this mission, I can unlock it as a new habit. And then every day I can go to my habit boards, I can check in with my habits, and our LMS actually making sure that people are accountable with their habits. And again, it's another type of activity that you can make and really make sure that you create habits in people's life. Now, the last example I want to give you for today is actually a feedback session. This is what we discussed before. So for example, in this training, after I practice active listening, I practice how to be more present on the call, I start practicing my daily habit. Now we can have a session which actually happens tomorrow at 1 p.m. And this session can be with the entire cohort, or maybe with my trainer, to discuss about, you know, what we actually experienced this week. And we can have a group session about it, where everyone can share, you know, what was their experience. People can give feedback to each other. And only after this session will take place, I will be able to unlock level 2 and continue in the sales training to the next level. So this was a quick example of how do we implement action-based learning inside of our LMS. But again, if you don't want to have our LMS, you can use the same principle and implement those in your existing tools. And we do encourage you, no matter what tools you're using, please add those action-based learning elements into your training. You won't believe what results you will get with this. It's like really, really amazing results. Billy, we're on any other slide? We're on the questions phase right now.
Yeah, I think it's time for questions.
Yeah.
And you can unmute yourself, or you can post in the chat. I don't know what's more convenient.
Yeah, feel free. Just before this, let me recap what we have learned today. for every, we have passive learning, which is the content that we deliver. We have active learning, which are the activities that we add on top of the content. If you want people to retain what you teach them, add these activities. Be very committed to be creative about this. When you're adding an activity, try to see how you can add feedback mechanisms so people can actually get feedback on their activities. Some of the feedback will get from the environment when doing the activity, but it will be great to get some feedback from colleagues, from peers, from coaches. So I think this is, and you can see knowledge retention up to 90% when you're really using these action-based strategies. Now, I would encourage you to share questions here on the chat if you have any questions about, action-based learning, about feedback, about our platform that we shared with you. Just for you to know, with our platform, the action-based learning LMS, it can be, again, a standalone LMS, or you can use it inside of your LMS. So you don't have to replace your LMS if you want to create some action-based journeys to your audience. Anyone has any question, feel free to, you can write it in the chat, or you can just open your camera, and it will be very nice to hear you as well and speak with you in person.
Yeah, and thank you, Yvonne, for the compliment.
I missed the compliment. What did she write?
The platform is clean, crisp, and clear.
Thank you, Yvonne.
I'm a bit of a tech nerd, so it's pretty. And it's very easy to see and clear to navigate.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. I see that Kevin wrote, the post-to-community feature is very powerful because they are getting feedback from the court, not just the coach, and it seems to make a different kind of impact when for them from people that are in the same type of roles. Yeah, this is really true. Creating peer learning is a very powerful way. We even seen some example in the past, for example, one of the biggest healthcare provider here in Israel, they are delivering training in myQuest, and they are using the one-on-one coaching to provide personal feedback. But after people, maybe I had a very interesting conversation with my coach, with the permission of the trainee, the coach posted in the community some of the insights. And then other people respond to that, and it creates a very powerful way to learn from each other and really to create high engagement in the training, right? Engagement leads to knowledge retention. And by the way, if you do not have any question, you can also share with us, what did you learn here on this workshop? What will you take from here? We would love to hear from you. I see that Julie wrote, I agree with Yvonne comments above as well. It blows me away the amount and quality of upgrades myQuest makes. I have honestly never any other platform come near their commitment to upgrades. I really appreciate your feedback, Julie. And by the way, if some of you would like to speak with us, whether you want to get our advice on how do you deliver action-based learning today in your organization, or if you want to learn more about our platform, Billy will post here on the chat a link to book a call with us. So
yeah,
feel
I just
free.
Posted it.
Yeah, feel free to click on it. You can also look at our website, myquest.co. This is our website, so feel free to go to the website and learn more. No question from anyone? Yeah,
Yvonne raised the, yeah.
What I picked up from today is that it's something that I will make sure I mention to the course creators that I come across. Course creation is very popular right now, and I'm not sure everybody's taking that next step further for the engagement in order to make sure what they learn sinks in. So I want to make sure I bring that to the table when I connect with course creators.
That's a great action item from this meeting. Any other feedback or action items you want to take?
And Julie wrote she picked up a couple of different approaches to finding ways to give good feedback. So we're glad to hear that. And by the way, so later today or tomorrow at latest, we'll share the recording. We'll also share a free course that you guys can take on implementing action-based learning. It will include some of the things we discussed today, but even more. And this course that also has a community where we're using obviously myQuest as the platform for that. So it has a course community where you can also share ideas, you can ask questions moving forward. And I'll also share the link to speak with us if any of you want. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was really, you're a great group, and it was really nice you were really engaged in the chat and the community. So well done on that. We're looking forward to stay in touch with you, and we'll have more events like this in the future. So if you like this one, we'll be happy to have you in our future events. And I wish everyone a wonderful day and active day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Goodbye.